I'm going to hand over to our last speaker, and he's very kindly going to close out. So before I do that, I just want to run you through a couple of things. If you really like what you've been hearing here tonight and can't wait for our next event, we recommend that you do check out the Moth podcast that I mentioned before and Story Collider. And we might even at some stage have some transcripts of these podcasts. And if you want to mark your calendar for the 13th of October in 2018 for the next event. We do have some small gifts for our speakers who have shared their stories, and like to thank Jenna and Together who sponsored the gifts for tonight. And just before I do hand over, I just want to end with a quote that I found from Irma Boombeck that I think captures the courage that it takes to have a story and to finally tell it. I have a hat. It is graceful and feminine and gives me a certain dignity, as if I were attending a state funeral or something. Someday, I might get up enough courage to wear it instead of carrying it. And I think that's what our speakers did tonight. Now, I'd like to hand over to Hāmua as a Māori TV presenter, also an Academy Navigator, and is with the Academy of Massey University. Te Hamua. Thank you.
Kia ora, everybody. So as I was reading the brief over for tonight, they said you need to start with a couple of sentences that are really going to grab everybody's attention. So I was thinking to myself, okay, cool. Man, my couple of sentences are really going to grab your attention. You know how tonight is about origins? Well, because of Cammie's accent, I thought she said oranges. So I'm really prepared to speak about oranges. And then I got here tonight and I heard origins, so I have to change my whole story. So let's go back to 1970. There was a young guy by the name of Charles Nikora. He was in the army stationed here in Linton. Handsome young Ngāti Pro man from the East Coast, handsome. Charles was his birth name, known as Charlie to his family or Chaz to his mates. And he was a bit of a player, this fella. He used to like to go to parties. He used to like to grab his guitar and he used to like to sing to women. And him and his army mates were heading back to Gisborne for a 21st one time. So he rang his brother who lived in Gisborne and he said, "Bro, can you hook us up with some nurses? Heard you're working at the hospital. Can you get some nurses? Me and the boys are coming home and we'd like to date some nurses." And so the brother living in Gisborne was working at the hospital and he had a girlfriend who also worked at the hospital, and he said, "My bro, it's not a problem. I can get Rowena's sister and her friends who all work with us at the hospital. Not a problem. Nurses, sewing up." The problem was Rowena and her sister weren't nurses. They were wards maids. They cleaned the hospital. So Charlie and his mates from the army here in Linton all shot back to Gisborne to meet these nurses. And as they were going, they decided, right, we're going back to Gisborne, which is quite a metropolis and a high-standing place in society as far as romance goes. So we need to make sure that we have the right equipment with us to score these nurses. So this is part of the equipment. This is a guitar. Every Ngāti Pro man is born loving the guitar. That is A major 7, scientifically proven to soften a nurse's heart. Charlie and his mates were in the car and they decided that this was how they were going to do it. Come on over here, lay by my side. I've got to be touching you. can feel it, eh? You can feel it. You're sitting there and you're like, I'm not even a nurse. And you certainly don't look like you're in the army. So they sang that song. Cut a long story short, Charlie and the nurse got it on. Not that night, because she was the good girl. She was from Gisborne. So she was different to most of them. Charlie was keen. He was like, come on, Sal. Come on. Come on. I just sang the whole song to you. She said, no, we need to court. Charlie had grown up in Gisborne. The only thing he knew about court, same thing most Māori fellas know about court. Wasn't too keen about court. 2 years later, they're walking up. He's walking up the aisle. She's walking up the aisle. I was at a Protestant church actually. Walking up the aisle to give her soul to him, and him his soul to her. And she'd made him wait for 2 years, so she was going to get more than his soul that evening. They had their after function. They went back to the whare. They did what they need to do, and they kept on doing it, and they knew that one day they would have a baby. And that baby was foreseen by prophets from just over that side of the room. And the prophets had foreseen a scrawny, little, skinny, bald-headed, big-eared, floppy-lipped, talented baby. Charles and Sal had this baby, and his name was Shane Nikora. That's me. Now you might say, but you just got introduced as Hāmua. That's because she couldn't say Te Hamua. So Te Hamua is a Māori name. When I was born, the next door neighbour, his name was John Hāmua Warbrick. And he used to come over and drink with my dad. And Mum was sitting there, rather large, and he said to her, Sal, if you have a baby boy, would you name him after me? And my mother thought, yeah, okay. John's a good name. John I can do. That's my father's name. My father is an Irishman. My grandfather, an Irishman. His name is John. Yes. And he said, no, I was thinking my middle name, Hāmua. And my mother, to be polite, said, okay. 1974, being Māori wasn't the coolest thing around. It was hard to be Māori, it was easier to not be Māori, which is why I don't understand why she married my father. Black as the ace of spades, lips that like stretch right across, and the nostrils that follow. When I was born, she named me Shane at my 21st birthday. She looked at me and she said, son. I said, yes, my mum. Son, you're a Maori. What? You are a Maori. I know. I've been one for 21 years. And she said, no, you really are a Maori. So I was born in 1974. 74 plus 21 equals 95. 1995, I turned 21. Now, in 1995, it was much easier to be Māori than it was back in 1974. By 1995, I was walking around with my ancestors drawn all over my body. By 1995, I had been doing the haka for 18 years. I had been winning competitions. I had been singing harmonies for a kapa haka ropu that smashed everybody else, and still does to this very day. By 1995, being Māori was acceptable, and my mother wanted to tell me, you are a Maori, because she saw festering inside me this young, handsome Māori prince. So I said, okay, thank you, that's good. And she goes, your name's not actually Shane. And I was like, oh, now this is getting deep. Had to check their drink. Okay, tell him P. Back then, P was all right. Because it stood for Pairoa, Pairoa. And she went on to tell me the story about the old man who gave me his name Hāmua when I was still in her puku. And it was almost like somebody took an ill-fitting jacket off me and adorned me with a robe of righteousness. Boom! I was like, oh, yeah. Sort of got that groove on, you know? Woo! Staying alive! I felt like this was the me that I was meant to be. The little bald-headed, well, I wasn't bald-headed then. Okay, about the bald-headedness. I love Michael Jordan. Awesome basketball player. But please tell your kids, if you love basketball enough to shave your head as a teenager, don't expect it to grow back when you get 40 years old. That's what's happening at the moment. So anyway, when I was younger, just to rewind a little bit, when I was younger, my dad said to me, I said, Dad, how did you meet Mum? And he told me the story about the nurse, and I cracked up laughing. And I said, and you know, my old man is a pretty handsome dude, but I knew that back then it wasn't cool to be Māori. And I couldn't understand why my mum hooked up with this Māori fella. And he grabbed the guitar and he sang me the song, and I'm like, I'm understanding. I'm understanding. And he said to me, my son, if you can play the guitar and sing, you can have a girlfriend whenever you want in your whole life. And sometimes it works. Sometimes. Not in Gisborne, but in other parts of the country it works. So he taught me to play the guitar. And the guitar and me have become friends ever since. When my mum told me that I was a Māori, it went from the guitar and me were just friends to the guitar and me were like a Māori warrior going through the forest. You'll see Māoris do that, like geckos, sort of tasting the air. Boil up over there. KFC that way. And that's what I'm like with my guitar. Fast forward a little bit. It's 1999. February 1999. I'm standing at a graveside in Gisborne. We've just lowered the coffin down into the grave. I look to my right. There's a young man holding his head in his hands and crying like a little baby. There's 3 young women standing there with him, 2 young women and a 9-year-old little girl. On this side is a man, a black man, with lips spread across his face, with nostrils as wide as his lips, a handsome Māori man, crying his eyes out. I'm standing, looking down at my mum. And I think to myself, how do I tell my mum how I'm feeling now? The woman that took me from Shane to Te Hamua. The woman that changed my nappy when my father had just taught me how to eat parengo, which is seaweed. And if you know what seaweed does to the insides of a person, and then it comes out, it's quite a brave thing to do to a baby's nappy. How do I tell this woman how I'm feeling? And I couldn't tell her then. Until a few weeks ago, I got a cousin, his name is Rob Ruha. He's a songwriter. And he wrote a song a few years ago, and he brought it out not too long ago. And when I heard it, that's the song. That's how I can tell my mum. It's about a kotuku, which is a heron, a white heron, that's been taken from a person that really loves it and it's been returned up into the sky, into the heavens, which is a beautiful place for the white heron to be. But for that person that loved that white heron, and all they have now is a memory, that's painful. If you know the song, please feel free to sing along with me. Unless, of course, you're flat, then just make up some actions of some sort. Te piki kōtuku kwa tiro atura tua hoki atura koe ki ngā ranginga ki ora hiki o nui i te pō. Waiho mai au moke moke ai te pō. I te pō. Te rauaroha kaka iho rā. Ua hoki atura koe ki ngā ranginga ki o nui ki o rahi i te pō. Waiho mai au moke moke ai i te pō. I te pō. I te pō. I'd like to leave that song with anybody here who's lost somebody that meant more to them than them themselves. If you've had somebody taken from your heart that was a major part of your heart, I want you to take that song and help yourself fill that void with beautiful music, with the knowledge that that lovely kōtuku, that heron that you loved so much, is now sitting in heaven, in the most beautiful place where there's no pain, there's no struggle, and most of all, no taxes. Morera, huri noa tō tātou whare tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I'd just like to say a short karakia, just to finish us off. Kei te mihi kia koe Kemi. O tira kia koutou katoa o tēnei rōpū kōrero. Thank you for putting this on tonight. Thank you for the opportunity for us as a family. We're family now. We've shared some intimate and spiritual connections tonight. So whenever you need something and you see me, probably best to go to the fella just behind and ask him, which will probably be Api. This is Api over here with the hat. You just go and ask Api. Hoi no, kei te mihi kia koutou. Tēnā koutou, kia ino i tātou. Tō mātou matua nui te rangi, nei rā mātou o ponunga te whakamoemiti atu nei ki a koe i tēnei wā. Te whakawhetai ki a koe mo ngā huatanga pai katoa ku uhia mai e koe ki runga i a mātou. Mo tēnei pōa tāhua me ngā taonga katoa kua kitea kua rangona, kei te mihi ki a koe. I tēnei wā ka inoi atu ki a koe, kia rehina mātou i roto i ngā mahi o te pō, tiakina mātou, i a mātou ka hoki atu nei ki te kāinga. Tiakina no hoki o mātou whānau e noho ana i reira, manaaki hi a rātou, kia tau ko tō wairua tapu ki runga i o mātou whānau, huri noa, huri noa, huri noa. Ka inoi atu ki a koe i roto i te ngō tāhautama i Hukaraiti, he aro tipua, he aro tahito, he aro matua ki a koe e i o e, hau mai te toki, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's have a big round of applause for our MC. That's a big moment.